Hello, Tubby and Coos fans. It is me, Candace, back for another author event. As always, I am super excited to be part of the launch tour for a book called Sing Me Forgotten. And this book, you're going to hear all about it, but it is a play on Phantom of the Opera. And as a big theater person, which is something you may or may not know about me, that excites me very much. So I'm excited to hear this conversation. I am here with Jessica S. Olson, who is the author of this book. And Jessica claims New Hampshire as her home, but has somehow found herself in Texas, where she spends most of her time singing praises to the inventor of the air conditioner, which I totally feel being here in South Louisiana as well. When she's not hiding from the heat, she's corralling her 3 wild but adorable children, dreaming up stories about kissing and murder and magic and eating peanut butter by the spoonful straight from the jar, which I also very much identify with. Jessica will be in conversation with Erin A. Craig, who has always loved telling stories. Erin is the author of House of Salt and Sorrows. And after getting her BFA in theater design and production, theater people, from the University of Michigan, she stage managed tragic operas filled with hunchbacks and seances and murderous clowns, and then decided she wanted to write books that were just as spooky. An avid reader, a decent quilter, a rabid basketball fan, a collector of typewriters, Erin makes her home in Memphis with her husband and daughter. And she told me that she's actually been to the bookstore, which is really cool. So welcome, Erin and Jessica.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank y'all so much for being here. And I am going to just let y'all talk and go away, and then I'll come back at the end.
Okay, sounds good.
Well, hello, congratulations. Woohoo, the book is out. I absolutely loved this book. I got an early copy of Jessica's book. It was back in the summer, I think.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Oh my gosh, I just tore through that. Like we have, I'm no longer in Memphis. We moved up to Michigan right in the middle of COVID, because a cross-country move in a global pandemic is a great idea. But we've got a killer back deck on our porch, and so I would just go out there and read it, and it was fantastic. It was like the best book to read outside, and imagining all these awful, tragic theater things.
Thank you. I had no idea when we asked you to read potential and I can't talk, to potentially blurb. We had no idea that you were way into theater and stuff. So that was a happy coincidence. I was oh my gosh, I know that about her. That was so cool.
I loved it. And it was, I stopped stage managing after I had my daughter about, she's coming up, she's almost 5, which I don't know how that's possible. But yeah, when I went on maternity leave, I called my last show just before she came along, and I haven't been stage managing since, because newborns and stage management schedules don't really jive well together. So it was so nice to read this, and it made me so homesick to be backstage and all with the sets and I loved it.
Yeah, it's kind of because I did a lot of theater in high school, and then I did some community theater for a while, but I mean, I also have kids, so it's it just doesn't really super work with the schedule or whatever when they're little. And so, and so it was kind of my this is how I'm going to be in the theater, even though I can't be in the theater, I'll write about it. So yeah.
I love that. So tell me, how did you get into writing?
So I started writing when I was little. I think a lot of authors are like this too, avid readers, and then we're I want to write a book too, And so when I was little, I would write picture books about, random stuff, and I would illustrate them too. I think my mom still has boxes in her attic of these books that I would they were about princesses and peanut butter jelly sandwiches and stuff like that. But and then it was Harry Potter when I was 11. I read it. Harry Potter started coming out, and I was I want to write a big book like this, And so I started trying to write novels, and it kind of just kept. It was always this hobby that I had all growing up when I was I'm going to be the youngest published author. I'm going to get published when I'm 15, and obviously that didn't happen. So I just kept writing, and seriously started trying to get an agent back in like 2009. I was like in college, and I started trying to get an agent then. And it took me over a decade, but I finally did it. And it took me several books and lots of rejection. But every author has to do that, you know, kind of like
absolutely.
your initiation. So, yeah. And so this is my debut, and then we have another one coming out next year. So it's crazy.
Oh, I was the same way. I always had like some little like like some people doodle. I would always do like little tiny stories and stuff. And I actually in high school I wrote I saw Phantom of the Opera for the first time. It was the first like big musical show I had ever seen. And what actually got me into theater because I was like, I really want to do this, but I can't sing and I'm horribly stage fright. So how can I do this without like being on stage? And I've always kind of been like a stage manager. Like I like coordinating things and scheduling stuff and like all of the details of everything. And so I wrote a ton of Phantom of the Opera fan fiction. It was so bad. So bad. Erin.
That's so awesome.
Terrible. I found a box of it when we were doing the move, and I was like, all of this needs to be burned. Like, I don't want it falling into the wrong hands.
That's so funny.
But I went to Michigan for college and theater and everything, and I would always like have like some little story, but I was never like, I'm gonna sit down and like write a book, and this is gonna be really good, and I'm gonna become an author and published and all this. But then I saw the I don't know if it was right after the movie. It must have been after the movies came out. Stephanie Meyers had an interview, like her path to publication. And it was the first time I had ever heard the word 3-book deal. And I was like, what does that even mean? Like they bought 3 books at once? Like, that's crazy. Like, what is this? And I started kind of researching stuff and I was like, well, this sounds fun. And like, she's writing about vampires. I like vampires and I could do this maybe. And so I had this Peter Pan retelling that I had been toying with, for forever. And I was like, why don't I just sit down and finish this? And then about 10 years later, I finally finished it. And after I had my daughter, I was doing the whole stay-at-home mom thing. And I was like, well, this is great, but she sleeps a lot. So I clearly need to be doing something. And I remembered that I had that story that I had finished. And so I was like, maybe I should try to get an agent and do all that, fun path to publication. And I ended up, I think I got 113 rejections on the Peter Pan.
Oh man.
Like, well, clearly this book isn't going to be the one. And so I started tinkering with what became House of Salt and Sorrows, and here we are.
Yeah. I loved House of Salt and Sorrows. Like, it's like one of my, I like tell everybody about it. Like, they're like, oh, I need a book rack. I'm like, okay, let me tell you about this 12 Dancing Princesses book because it's like amazing. I just like live for like atmosphere, like dark, like bordering on horror kind of stuff. Like, it's like, that's like totally my jam, where it's like not horror, but like it feels like almost there, like where it's like there's scary moments and there's things that go bump in the night, but it's not like I'm not going to have like nightmares for 3 months at the, because I'm kind of a pansy. So it was perfect for me because it was like enough scary that I was like, what's going to happen? And I like kept the light on while I was reading, but like, it was not so much. Yeah. That I was like, oh, well, I guess I'm never going to sleep again. I loved it. I'm so excited for your next book. So excited.
Oh, thank you. I'm excited. It's out in July, which is coming up so fast and so crazy.
Yeah,
and it looks, I have to say, like, it looks really good with Sing Me Forgotten. Like all the yellow.
It does, like the yellow and the black. Yeah, it works. Nice coordination. We planned this.
So what did your debut look like with like COVID and I can't, it was like wild to begin with, and then I can't even imagine how like the last year changed everything.
Yeah, well, it was funny because I signed my deal with Harper when it was like, we weren't even in the pandemic yet. No, it was because publishing, like these super long timelines. So it was back in like 2019 that we signed the deal. So in my head, when we signed the deal, like I was going to have like this, I was planning this like masquerade, like launch party where everybody wears masks and like we have like French pastries and it was going to be amazing. And then, And then the whole pandemic thing hit, and everybody was like canceling their launch parties and like postponing their, like, a lot of people got their books postponed and stuff. So it was kind of like this like up in the air time where like I kept emailing my editor being like, so are we still good? Like, are we still, like, are we still go? And like just making sure that like we weren't getting, and luckily like I was far enough like out that they like never had to push me or whatever, because I think some of like the spring titles like last year had to get like pushed back or whatever because of the pandemic. But luckily I was like a full year out, and so we weren't as worried. But I was in my head I was like, well, it's like a whole year away, like there's no way that like things won't be back to normal by then. Like, well, I'll be able to have a in-person launch party, I'll be able to do my masquerade party. But then like I think everybody kind of was like, oh, it's only going to be a few weeks, and then it was like, oh, 1 year later, here we are. So, but I actually think that it's been pretty, I've been pretty lucky that I've been kind of later in the pandemic, because I've been able to watch so many other authors have their launch and their debut and like see how they're doing things. And so that by the time it was my turn, like I kind of knew like virtual events is kind of how we do things now. And like, like trying to really engage people on social media, because you can't go to like events like where you can interact face to face and like those kinds of things. They're kind of more the norm now. And so I feel like I've been pretty lucky that I'm kind of, we've been in the pandemic for a year now. So I'm not trying to scramble. Like I didn't have to like cancel any events or like have my book postponed or anything. And since I've never had a book out before, like this is my first one, I don't really know any different. I don't know what it's like to put out a book when it's not a pandemic. So I'll be interested. Hopefully like things will, I feel like at this point it's just going to last forever, but hopefully someday we'll get back to normal and I'll be able to see like what it's like to put out a book when we can actually like have in-person events and like go to cons and stuff. But
yeah, my husband got a vaccine last weekend, so we were like on cloud nine, and yay, hopefully the end is in sight.
Yeah, that's so exciting. Yeah, hopefully I'll be able to get our vaccine soon.
Yeah. Have you seen it in stores yet?
I did. We went just like on the day that it came out, we like got all our masks on and took the kids and went to a Barnes and Noble just to like see it on the shelf, and like the kids helped me find it. We're like, where's mommy's book? And we found it, and that was really cool to see. But it wasn't like a big like hoopla or anything because pandemic times, but
right. But it was just cool to see it though. Mama's book. That's so cool.
There it is. And the kids were excited because they, obviously been seeing my book all over the place. So they thought it was cool that it was like at a store. And so that was kind of fun.
My 4-year-old absolutely loves your cover. And like when I was reading, I got the physical arc of it. And so I had just seen, I think I had like just started like printing out some proofs and stuff of the Small Favors cover. And so like my tiny Craig kept like picking it up and like carrying your book around. She said, this is Mama's book. And I'm like, no, this is not Mama's book.
No, not quite.
She really likes your cover.
That's really cute.
It's beautiful. Like, oh, I love that cover.
I love it too. I know that you were saying that
and then
my publisher sent out like masks with the books and stuff. And so I know you were saying that you're yeah, he's wearing the mask.
She loved that. She's got a little friend who lives across the street, and they like to play superheroes out in the backyard and run around. And so that's the mask that they both fight over. Who gets to wear that one?
That's so cute. That's funny. Yeah, my daughter keeps forgetting that my book is called Sing Me Forgotten, and she like calls it the Phantom of the Opera. Because she knows it's like a Phantom of the, but she's also 4. She doesn't know the difference between my book and the Phantom of the Opera. Like I think in her head it's like one thing or something. I don't know. But so she like drew me a picture the other day where it was like my book cover, but it was like the Phantom of the Opera, but like she can't spell. So it was like, it was really funny.
I love that.
It's your book, the Phantom of the Opera. I'm like, I didn't actually write that one, but thanks.
Well, speaking of that, so you took like a really big classic book and musical and all these things. How did you like go about deciding because I felt like at first when I saw your book announcement, I was like, oh my gosh, how do you do like a gender bent phantom? Like I've never even thought of, that character as a girl. How did you decide like what parts of the story to keep, to transform, to like pay homage to? Like how did you go about like the process of retelling that?
So for me, I didn't see the show until I was an adult, but I grew up on the music, and I read the book, growing up, and I loved the book. It was one of my favorite books. But when I saw the play, I saw it on Broadway. Like the first time I ever saw Phantom of the Opera was on Broadway, which was really fun. I saw the play, and like it just was like so like beautiful. Like the music obviously is just really iconic and like memorable and lovely, but you don't quite grasp how beautiful the play is until you see like the whole experience with like the chandelier and like the costumes and the smoke and the rising candles and like all of the things that
the candelabras are so
beautiful. So pretty. And so I think like that was when I like really was just like, oh my goodness, because like I always loved Phantom, but like when I saw, I was like, that when that overture started playing and the chandelier like rose from the stage, like I was like crying, and it was like the play just started. I was just like, this is so beautiful. And so like I think from that, I didn't know like at that moment like, oh, I want to write like a Phantom of the Opera story. But as time passed, as I was working on some other books or whatever, and then I had the idea it was like 2 or 3 years later, it was like, what if I did a Phantom of the Opera book? But like for me, when I saw the play, and like not so much when I read the book, but when I saw the play, I identified like so deeply with the Phantom character, which is funny because I'd always imagined myself being Christine, obviously, because she's like this beautiful like diva, like not diva, but like opera singer, and she's sweet and she's innocent and she's got this beautiful like curly hair and like all this stuff, and she gets to wear these gorgeous dresses. And so I always wanted to be Christine. Like even when I was little, I would like my parents have videos of me like singing opera in the backyard because I wanted like pretending to be Christine and stuff. But when I saw the play, I identified with the Phantom like so much more, and like I just like ached for him because I actually I was born with like an eye condition, which is really hard to tell when I'm on like a call like this because I'm like looking and I can see myself. But like in regular, like I have a really bad lazy eye, and like growing up, I had lots of like eye surgeries, and like I wore eye patches and had to like do muscle exercises. It was just like, it was a thing like all growing up. And I got made fun of a lot for being like cross-eyed and like all of this stuff. And so I had a lot of this, like, I don't know, when I saw the Phantom, like even though the way that the world discriminated against him was because of like his face, like I identified so much with him because throughout my childhood, I'd been hurt and I'd been ostracized and I'd been bullied because of my appearance. And so like when I had the idea to write a Phantom of the Opera story, like I knew it had to be from his point of view, like just because like I understood like when I saw the show, like the kind of pain and the kind of anger that you can harbor for people. And I could see like, even though I have not chosen to be a villain, I could see like why someone like you get hit enough times, you want to hit back. Like if you get hurt enough times, you want to hurt someone else. And I kind of wanted to show how someone could be pushed to their absolute breaking point, to the point where like they were a good person, they wanted to be a good person, but like society would not let them be that person. So fine, if you want me to be a monster, then I'm going to be the monster because like you won't let me be anything else. And so that was kind of how that became like, I wanted to write that story. And then it just kind of flowed naturally to like want to tell it from like a girl's point of view, because I'm obviously also like I like knew that I could bring that aspect to it. But then also I think there are a few like problematic issues with like, just because of the time period that like Phantom of the Opera was written in and stuff, I feel like it's a little bit like not like totally sexist, but there's like a little bit of like inherent misogyny in the way that like Christine is kind of treated throughout the play. And I kind of wanted to address some of that and have the girl be like, you know, the main character, and she's driving the plot and she's in control of, you know, her actions, and she like no one's using her as a pawn, and if they are, like it's not okay, you know, like it's clear that that's not okay. So it's kind of like it took a while to like grow into what it became, but yeah, that's kind of how it progressed, I guess.
Yeah, I absolutely loved your magic system in it. Like I was just in awe of everything. I was like, because at first I was like, wait, how does this work? Oh my goodness, there's memories, but there's music, and I loved how you like everything with that unfolded. It was just, I'm trying to keep everything spoiler free, but I absolutely adored it. It was so good.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it was a little tricky because I was trying to like do like this memory like magic thing, and I originally had it that that the memories were currency in their world. So like you would get your memories extracted, and it was like how they used for their money or whatever. But that proved to be a little bit too complicated for just the plot that I was trying to tell, because Isda never leaves the opera house, so you would never actually see like the money changing, you know, like used. And so I felt like it would be too difficult to like get the readers to like totally understand how this world worked. And so I had to kind of tone that back, but I still loved like how the memory stuff like worked. And so, yeah, but it was, I feel like I discovered with Isda, like how the magic worked, because she doesn't exactly know all the things that she can do with her power in the beginning of the book. And then she like learns. And I feel like as I drafted, I learned too. I was like, oh, you can do this now, I guess.
I was talking on Friday night. I had a thing with Hannah Witten. Her book For the Wolf comes out in June.
So excited for that one.
It's so good. I've read it I think 3 or 4 times. We were critique partners like way back pre-agent days,
cool.
and like getting to see it grow. But we were talking about like how people create their magic systems, and I was just like, I kind of avoid mine until I can't help it. I like the first, my first draft of House of Salt and Sorrows, we never actually saw a ball until like the very last one with the
really?
sea turtle. And my editor, like, she still bought the book. I don't know why. But her first note was like, so this is a 12 Dancing Princesses retelling, and maybe we should see some dancing. Like, I don't know.
That's so funny.
But I had no idea. Like, I was like, how do you get them here? Like, obviously, they're on an island. They can't go anywhere. Like, without boats and like massive things. And it's like the Grimm's brothers don't help at all, because they're just like, oh, they went down this trap door that led to a magic forest, because underground
they don't have to explain stuff.
Oh, it's so unfair. But yeah, and then my magic system within Small Favors, it's like, we don't know anything because the character doesn't know anything, so we don't need to know anything for the longest time. And whenever my agent finally pressed me, like, what is going on here? I don't know. It's magic. But I'm always in awe of like a really good magic system.
Oh, I mean, yeah. I think magic systems are really tricky, and I think I like in my head when I'm planning out a book, I try to figure out everything beforehand, and then it like never works. Like I have to kind of like I have to have like a basic idea, but I think a lot of it has to come like as I'm drafting, like, oh, we need it to work this way. And so, yeah, I think the magic of magic happens in revision, honestly, absolutely. At least for me.
For sure. Yeah. And I outline everything to the nth degree, and I will do anything to avoid explaining magic or like the supernatural stuff. And like, it was so easy with House, because it was like, oh, gods, they're doing things. I don't know. They're gods. They
can do whatever they want.
They've got cosmic powers. I don't know. It works.
Yeah. That's so funny.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to a book where it's just like supernatural with no magic.
Yeah.
Anything. It's a ghost. I don't know.
Don't have to explain it. This is a ghost.
They're dead. It's a thing. So you said that you've got a new book that that's coming out next year?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I have. So when we sold Sing Me Forgotten, it was part of a 2-book deal. So we have another book coming out next year. It's another standalone fantasy. It's called A Forgery of Roses. And it is like, I pitch it as like Stalking Jack the Ripper meets The Picture of Dorian Gray. So it's like this, the main character has like, she's a portrait artist, and her portraits like have the power to change people like in real life. And so she gets kind of blackmailed into doing a painting for a dead man. And so it's kind of like, it's a murder mystery. It's like set in this Gothic mansion in like this kind of like London feeling city. So it's like murder mystery, you know, there's definitely romance, because I can't write a book without romance, but so I'm really excited about it. And I'm really excited to be able to share more about, like, the cover is so, like, I've only seen concepts so far, but like when I, like, let me tell you, like when I opened the email that had the cover concept, I was like, oh, like it was so pretty. And so I'm like, I just can't wait to see the final thing and be able to share it and stuff. But obviously got to do Sing Me Forgotten stuff first, but I can't wait.
It sounds fantastic. Tell your agent. I definitely want a copy.
I'll tell her.
Would love to early read that.
Yeah, for sure.
I've got Small Fevers coming out in July, and then it's a loose Rumpelstiltskin retelling, kind of set in this like sort of Colorado town, and kind of obviously there's some magic and stuff, so it's not like very historical, but a Colorado town in like the 1870s 80s or so. It's got a lot of like Needful Thing vibes. It really has a ton of like M. Night Shyamalan The Village vibes. And it takes place around like this family of beekeepers, and so instead of spinning straw into gold, they turn, you know, sugar into honey.
Oh wow, that sounds so cool.
I love it. It's a lot darker than House in a lot of ways. I feel like House was more. It gets. My dad just read it. He finished reading it last night, and he left me a voicemail. He was like, "I thought I knew how it was going to go down. I did not expect that. I'm a little disturbed that you came up with it, but I like it." Like, well, that's
well, I can't wait to read it now based on that. Like, your dad should read the blurb, and then I'm a little disturbed. So a million copies.
Oh, how did you come up with this? Like, you're my sweet daughter. Why are you thinking these awful thoughts?
I know. It's so funny. I get people being like, "You're the nicest person ever, and your characters are so angry." I'm like, I don't know.
When House came out, the church that we were going to in Memphis, the pastor wanted to like announce, especially we hit the New York Times bestseller list the second week it was out, and so she wanted to like announce it as like a joy, you know, to the congregation. And I was like, I don't know. They're gonna ask me what it's about, and like gods and murder doesn't really seem like the kind of church thing, the things the little church lady like. And so I was like, I think if you want to say it, like don't like point or say names or anything like that. And she's like, we just, you know, we wanted to let you know we have a published author, and she hit the New York Times. Of course, everyone turns and looks at me. The next week, like all of these little like 80-year-old women came up to me, and they were like, "This was the best book I ever read. It was very disturbing, and it was so nice. And why are these terrible things in your head?" And I was like, church.
That's so funny. Yeah, I had a similar experience, like when, you know, my book was announced and my parents hadn't read it yet, and they were telling, you know, their friends from church, and I was like, I don't know if this is like the kind of stuff that the little old ladies at your church are gonna want to read. Like, I was like, this is not a Phantom of the Opera who like kills people, and like I don't know like if they're gonna like it. But I mean, you can tell them about it. I don't know. You know, but at least now they've read it. So when they tell people, they know what they're telling them. So it's like, okay, it's up to you now. You know what it is.
I always get so nervous when my parents read the books, because it's like there's kissing and things and murder and mayhem and lots of family situations and just awfulness.
Yep, you're like, I'm not as innocent as I once was.
Well, I think we've got time for a little lightning round before Candace comes back.
Okay.
All right, so it's been about a year since we started this glorious quarantining project of the world. What has been your favorite comfort movie to watch? Or comfort TV show will also be accepted.
We've been watching The Vampire Diaries. Like, I had never seen them before. I'd never seen that show before, and we decided to watch The Vampire Diaries. What?
The brothers, it's them.
Yeah, it's the brothers. So I had never watched it before, and with the pandemic, it was like, well, let's watch a show. And so we started watching it in like the fall, and like I was obsessed. Like, we just finished finally, like last week or 2 weeks ago, but like it was like an obsession, like to the point where like I was like having dreams about Damon Salvatore. Like, we were getting married in these dreams, and like my husband's like, should I be concerned? And I'm like, no, it's fine. But like, yeah. I mean, in my dreams, he wasn't a very good husband, so it worked out in my husband's favor. But but it was like, yeah, it's been a fun show, and it like satisfies all those like supernatural, like darkness, like anti-hero cravings that I have, and I love those things. So it worked out.
Absolutely. We started, so my husband's a giant trucker, and I didn't realize this until after I married him. And we were on our honeymoon, and like, I think it was like the second of the Chris Pine reboot movies had come out, and he was like, we have to go see this. There's an IMAX down the street from the hotel we're at, and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, what are you talking about? Star Trek? Like, no, I remember like LeVar Burton, like occasionally like flipping channels and seeing him with the little visor and stuff. But like, that was really all I knew of Star Trek. And so my debut year, I had a bunch of tip-in pages I was signing. And so he was like, I think we're going to watch, because Tiny Craig somehow saw the Tribble episode, and she loves those little furry Tribble things. So she had watched nauseum. And he was like, I think we're gonna watch Star Trek Enterprise. I was like, oh, so like the Captain Kirk. So he's like, no, this is Enterprise. And I was like, I don't know what it means. I was like, Scott Bakula. And I'm like, why is Scott Bakula with William Shatner? He's like, it's totally different. Why? Like, just go along with it. And so we started watching Enterprise, which is like canon wise, it's prequel to like the Kirk Star Trek, but obviously was filmed much later in life. So we started that and like worked our way through it. And so pandemic, we've crossed off like Voyager and Deep Space Nine. We finally watched all of the Next Generation, and we've been watching Discovery and Picard and everything as it comes out. But like, we finished last week and we have no more new episodes to watch. And I'm so
what do I do?
And it's like, what do we like? And there's Picard and Discovery, and then Strange New Worlds are filming right now in Canada. And so it's like, hurry up. Jones like, I need more track. And my husband's like, I created a monster. I did not expect it.
I have never watched any of like the Star Trek like TV show. I've only seen like the movies, so maybe I should try it. We're like, what do we watch now that we're done with, the Salvatore brothers? Like, we don't know, because there's like those spin-off shows, like the originals and legacies and stuff or whatever. But I'm like, but the Salvatore brothers are like the whole thing for me, and they're not in it. So I don't know.
We watched a couple weeks ago. We finally saw Queen's Gambit, and oh my gosh, that was so good.
I've heard good things.
The costumes and set design for it was breathtaking. All right, so you can go back in time and watch any Broadway show right now. Where are you going? Or what are you going to see, rather?
Any show?
Any show. Like, if it closed after opening night, like any Broadway show you want to see.
I mean, I'm kind of bummed. I never saw Les Mis on Broadway before it's no longer on Broadway. Like, that was kind of a bummer. Because I love Les Mis. I would love to go back and experience Phantom of the Opera for the first time again, because like, I mean, I've seen it several times since, but that first time it was just like, just the music is so iconic and moving.
Oh, absolutely.
I would love to see like the original Wicked, like with Idina Menzel and Kristen Chenoweth. Like, that would be really cool.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, pretty much like any show, honestly, I would be down to go see.
So happy.
I love a good Broadway show. What about you?
I would go back and see a very terrible, terrible musical, Dance with the Vampires with Michael Crawford. So we go back to Phantom. It was written by Meatloaf.
Huh, I have not heard of it.
So there's a good reason for it. It flopped. Its tagline was like, no, that was the last one. But it was so good and campy. It's based on Roman Polanski's The Fearless Vampire Killers movie from like the 70s. It was like one of his like grad school projects or something. Sharon Tate stars in it. It's delightful. But it's like it didn't know what it wanted to be because it's like really campy, like super campy. But then it's also like dark, sensual Michael Crawford, the like 90-year-old vampire, like sexy beast. Like, and also why is the sexy beast like he was, I think, 75 when he was doing it. But it was like this gorgeous gothic music, and then Act 2 opens with Total Eclipse of the Heart because Meatloaf wrote the music. So you've got these Broadway belters singing out Total Eclipse of the Heart. It's glorious and terrible, and I would love to see it again because the spectacle was just like the staircase comes out of nowhere, and it's like twice the size of the theater. I don't know how they fit it in. Like it was just monstrous, and they had at the very end. The vampire, this is not a spoiler because it's been off Broadway for like 20 years, but the vampires win and they take out the vampire killers and they suck the earth dry and like everything. So the final show or the number of the show is Times Square, but it's been vampirized.
Oh, no.
So they're all like singing, we're going to see the vampires dance because it's Dance of the Vampires. And it's so cheesy, and I loved it because it had all the glorious gothicness. And I never say his name right, but Rene, he was in Deep Space Nine. Rene Auberjonois, I don't know how to say his last name, but he played the vampire stalker killer guy, and he did like the best patter song I've ever seen. Like it was just like so chatty, and he just nailed it, and it was just like, yes,
that sounds awesome.
Terrible and wonderful all at once. And I would totally love to see it again because like they recorded a cast album and then it closed. And so they never released it. I'm like, I want to hear this music again. It was so good and terrible. And yeah, every time I hear Total Eclipse of the Heart now, I get a little sad.
Oh. Yeah, you know what else? There's this other play, and I don't know if you've heard of it, but being a theater person, you probably have. There's this other musical based on the Phantom of the Opera. It's called Phantom, the American Musical Sensation by Mara Yeston. Have you heard of it?
Yes. And David Stoller played. Yes, I love David Stoller. Yes. Oh,
I would love to see that play like done. Like I wish they could do it on Broadway because like, you know, like with that level of like set and all of that stuff. So it's like for people who aren't familiar, it's, you know, it's another play that's based on the Phantom of the Opera book, but it came out at the same time as Andrew Lloyd Webber's, but obviously Andrew Lloyd Webber's took off, so this one like sank because
he did some stuff. He did some stuff. And so I have costume designs that I did for that. That was my senior year project for costume history class.
That's so cool.
I just rearranged my office. I don't know where anything is right now, but if I have a quick flash of inspiration where I put them, I'll show them on camera. They're terrible. I'm an awful drawer. Like there's a reason I was a stage manager and not a costume designer.
That's so cool.
But I love that. And my professor, I wanted to do Phantom of the Opera, and my professor was like, Erin, I mean, come on, like, are you really going to top like the Phantom's costume? Just like, but what are you doing now? So I was like, Yeston's.
Yeah, it's like for diehard Phantom fans, they need to see it. Yeah,
so good, so good.
It is. I love how like it humanizes the Phantom so much more than like than the Broadway show does. Like I feel like you really get a glimpse of like the Phantom as a character as opposed to just like him as this like creepy like lurking monster man. Yeah.
Oh, it humanizes him. Yeah, like you felt like so much more of
his pain.
His story. Like obviously they're both named Phantom, but like it really was his story and not like Christine's. This weird guy is chasing me through mirrors. I don't know stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
So are you Team Phantom or Team Raoul?
I get this question a lot, and it's such a complicated question for me because in like context of the story and like the aesthetic and like how I'm feeling when I'm watching the play or whatever, like I'm like totally on board for the Phantom, because I love bad guys. I love like monster romance. I love like the twisted like backstory. Like I love the Darkling. I love Kaz Brekker. Like give me all those bad guys. Like I'm there for that. But like if we're talking like real life, like if Christine were my friend and she were like, which one should I pick? I would probably not tell her to pick the Phantom. So it's like, it's tricky because I, you know, Raoul is like obviously less stalkerish and less murdery and less like like obsessive and stuff. So so I would probably recommend.
He goes and gets the scarf, and he's yeah, he's thoughtful.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know, but also yeah, there's some cons to Raoul as well. He's kind of boring, and also he also kind of uses her in his own way. Like he uses her as bait to get the Phantom, and he manipulates her into doing what he wants her to do in order to catch the Phantom. He gaslights her when she's like, it's the Phantom. He's like, oh, it's all in your dream. You're making it up. Like, I don't know. And so I'm like, I'm team Christine, like, should probably be better than both of those guys. But in context of like the show, like, who do I think is like a way more fun character to ship? Like, it would totally be the Phantom. For me.
Absolutely. Have you seen the sequel that Andrew Lloyd Webber did?
Yes, I prefer to pretend it doesn't exist.
I absolutely love some of the music, and then
It's
like
good
within the show, it's just like you don't know that this feels like canon for any of them. Like this is Raoul ends up such an awful scum. I'm glad
I know, and like I think part of the beauty of the ending of the Phantom of the Opera is like how open it is. Like you don't know where the Phantom's going to go. You don't know if he's going to be a hero or if he's going to be different because of his experience with Christine. Like I love that open ending.
Again with Meg, like
exactly, and the whole everything in Love Never Dies. I was just like, no, thank you. Like, I'll listen to the music. And then we can just pretend like the story never happened.
Exactly. Let's see. Last lightning round question. What books do you have on your nightstand right now?
Oh, shoot. Let's see. I have, I'm currently reading All the Tides of Fate by Adeline Grace. So that is definitely on my nightstand. I'm finishing that one up. She and I are chatting on Wednesday, so I wanted to make sure that I was like up to date with her books. And so reading that one. And then there's this fantastic book coming out soon called Stalking Shadows by Kyla Pennon. And it's coming out from Amulet. It's like a Beauty and the Beast retelling, but it's like gothic and gorgeous. And I'm like, I haven't started it yet, but I'm like so excited to read it. It comes out in like September, I think. But yeah, what about you? What are you reading?
I just finished Grady Hendrix's the final girls support group last night, and oh my gosh, it was like such a whirlwind of plot twists, and like it was everything I wanted it to be. So many plot twists. It takes like
my list.
Like final girls, like at the end of like a teen slasher movie. And like the girl that evades the serial killers and everything. And it's like, what if they had like a support group for each other? Like after, years and years and years after this, what would they look like as people? Because like, obviously they went through these horrible things. Their families were murdered. Their friends were, the boyfriends, whatever. And just all these terrible inventive ways that teen slashers always seem to kill people with. And so what I loved about it was Grady takes, like, it's obviously its own world because the girls like they spin off their own film franchises in the book. But he takes it. And so it's very obviously the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Here's Freddy Krueger's girl. Here's, all the, the Halloweens and all these different ones. And it was so much fun to see like what that would actually, cause I love scary movies. And so it was so much fun to see like what that would actually look like. And like, what would your actual because, in movies, you never get like the real psychological trauma of anything. It's just like, oh, my boyfriend got hit with a pickaxe. Oh, I've got to go run down this hall now, in my bare, nightgown, whatever. And it was so much fun to see like what that would actually look like. Like, what if you were, you know, stalked by Pinhead or whatever, like these things. And so that was really fun. I'm in the middle of Strange Grace by Tessa Gratton. It came out a couple of years ago, and it's just got the most glorious purple and red cover I've ever seen. And it's so like,
I've heard of that one.
Weird small town. There was a witch that made a pact with the devil to like protect their town. So like no one ever gets sick. No one ever, you know, drowns. Everyone lives to an old age and dies peacefully in their sleep. Horses never die. The you know, harvest is always good. Except every 7 years they have to sacrifice their very best boy, and he has to go into the woods for one night. And if he survives the devil, he can come back and like live in the town, but like very few obviously do. And so one year they're like mid-cycle between the sacrifices, and all of a sudden like the wheat starts to go black and a horse dies in the middle of a field and like all these weird things start to happen. And then there's the blood moon, which is supposed to like signal the start of the sacrifice, and like they've got like this whole pageantry system. And so one of the main characters is the daughter of the local Grace witch. And then her father was one of the runners several cycles back, but he left without realizing his wife was pregnant with the girl. And so her love interests are the two boys that are competing to run in the thing. And it's like, it's so good. And there's like love triangles on love triangles on love triangles. And like,
I love love triangles.
It's just drips off the page. It's so good.
Okay, I'll have to look that one up because it sounds like totally up my alley. Like that sounds amazing.
So good. It's like one of those books where I want to go through and like underline like every other sentence because it's just so beautifully written.
I love those. That's so cool.
So I think Candace is maybe coming back soon to try to time it out right.
Hi.
There she is.
Hey.
There are some, I think we do have a couple of questions.
Okay.
One that I wanted to mention to you, Erin, I don't know if you've watched it yet, but there's a cartoon, Star Trek Lower Decks. Did y'all watch it?
I want to watch that.
It's a new thing, so it might give you that like new, like I know you said you didn't have any new episodes, so
I haven't decided, is it like, I don't know if it's Tiny Craig appropriate. I've heard like it gets kind of raunchy, so we haven't watched it yet. We're saving it for like nighttime, but like actual real Star Trek people, like the live people, not animation. But yes, yeah. I definitely that's on my list to watch.
Cool. And Jessica, I just wanted to mention that Ian Somerhalder, who is in your Vampire Diary show and is the one that you dream about, is from here.
Oh, I guess I need to go to New Orleans.
Well, he's from like the area, like he's from Mandeville, which is like on the north shore of the lake from New Orleans. So it's maybe 30-45 minutes away from this area. And so he comes to all the cons and stuff here. You know, if they're here, he's always there because, you know, I guess he can come home.
Yeah.
Just wanted to mention that. Like,
that's so cool. That's really cool.
Yes.
Didn't know that.
Fun facts. I only knew that I know him from Lost. I haven't watched the Vampire Diaries.
Yes. I need to go back and watch Lost now that I've like seen him as Damon. I'm like, I wonder if it would be weird to see him as anybody else because he's just like so Damon in my head. Like even if I've seen, like we watched an interview once of him like where he's just like talking and he's like not Damon, like he's like in real life, like he's just like Ian. And I'm just like, what's wrong with you? You're not acting like yourself. Like I'm like, no, I don't like it. I don't accept that you are not Damon in real life. Like I don't accept this.
I feel that.
Yeah. So I feel like maybe it would be weird to watch Lost now because I watched Lost like way back in the day, you know. But I wonder if I watched it now, if I would feel betrayed by him not being Damon in Lost.
Super young in it, so it might feel like a whole different.
Maybe it'd be okay. Yeah. Who knows?
Anyway, so we have a couple of questions. What advice would you give to fledgling authors? Mariah Rose M asks.
That's tricky. So I feel like the biggest thing that I try to tell people who are like newer, starting out or whatever, is to find the thing about writing that brings you joy and to like just like spend all of your time like honing that joy for writing, because like a lot of times people get so caught up in like trying to get published that like it sucks the joy out of it, because honestly, like publishing is a business. It's, you know, it's not fun in a lot of ways. Like it takes the fun and like the joy out of it sometimes, just because it's about money and it's about pitching and it's about the market, and like and it can get easy to lose sight of like why you're doing it. And so I think if you start out and you have the solid foundation of just loving writing, that it makes like the stuff that's not as fun like worth it. Like you're willing to like deal with that stuff because you love the craft so much. And so I think for me, like what I would tell a younger or a newer author or whatever, just to like remember why you love it, and to like really like write what you love, write books that you're passionate about, and like find as much joy in the process as you can, because there's going to be like rejections, and those are not fun, you know, and you got to love it to keep going in spite of rejection and stuff.
Oh, for sure. I would say too, like I always assumed writing was like a very solitary act, because it's you getting everything in your head out onto a paper. So like who else would be involved in it? And it wasn't until I found my critique partner that like I felt like I became part of like the writer community. And like Jessica was saying, like there's so many times you hear the word no and it sucks, and it starts to just feel like this very muddy slope that you're never going to get up through. But like having somebody that you can, and there's so much of publishing you're not allowed to say when it's going on. Like when you submit a full to an agent, you're not supposed to say it because it's all supposed to be secret and sneaky and everything. And so like having like somebody who's like kind of behind the scenes and who's also going through the same thing that you are, and you can be like, oh my gosh, I got a full request today from so-and-so. Oh, I can't wait to hear. Oh, it's going to be 3 months before I hear anything. Oh, maybe she'll say tomorrow. And like they go through like the whole neurotic process with you. And like it's so reassuring that like other people are going through the same thing, because like I started querying before I met my critique partner, and it was just like, oh, I got my first rejection. I clearly suck and this is terrible. And like now, I have Hannah who's like, girl, come on, like no, let's
you don't suck.
holes, like all this and everything. And so like find a writer group, a writer community. It doesn't have to be like people. I know a lot of people do like meet in person and swap things and stuff. I like Hannah and I've met a couple times in real life, but like online is everything. So,
I know, especially in the pandemic.
Especially then. And so like definitely like find people who like you're comfortable with sharing your work with, and like that are going to be your cheerleaders. And like some of those writing friendships that I started at the beginning, like we're still going strong, and like we have camp, NaNoWriMo's, we're always in the same cabin and everything every year. And it's just like it's so much more fun to go through this crazy journey with other people, and not just high five your desk because you're just sitting
because it's just you by yourself.
I typed in, hooray.
I definitely agree with that. Yeah, I 100 like it got so much not easier, but easier to handle when I found friends, because I also was like you, I queried before I had critique partners, and the difference between like what it was like to query before I had writer friends and what it was like once I had writer friends is just like night and day. Like I could pick myself up a lot better when I had my cheerleaders being like, you can do it, your books don't suck, you're worth it. And like, yeah. And like the no's don't stop after you get an agent. Like you still get no's all the time. Like rejection never ends. And so you need your cheerleader, you need your village to like lift you up. So.
And then when the good things do happen and you can't talk about them for like 3 months, you're doing everything, they know, and they can be like, yes, we're having champagne tonight.
Yeah, exactly.
That is awesome. I love writer communities. I like to write as well. I've never tried to sell anything, but I just like to write. I think a lot of booksellers also like to write. So I like being around writers, and authors are always such good cheerleaders for each other and for booksellers, because like everybody wants booksellers to succeed. So it's a good little ecosystem, I think.
Yeah.
It's like a happy little terrarium.
Exactly. Let's see. Jonathan Olson wants to know, what was your favorite scene to write in Sing Me Forgotten?
Oh, that's a hard question. So there's this one scene that was inspired by the music of the night, like scene kind of. There's like a duet between Isda and Emmerich. And that was one of my favorite scenes to write, which I'm not going to like spoil too much, but it was just like, it's a really like profound moment for Isda, where she kind of has this moment where she realizes that she doesn't have to be alone in the world. And that music doesn't have to be her only friend. Like there's a possibility of having other companionship out there. That was a really powerful moment for me when I was reading that. And then also the ending was, that was one of my favorite scenes to write, even though it like killed me to write it. And I'm not going to say any more because I don't want to spoil it for people, but I also cried when I read it. So if you cry when you read it, know that I also cried when I read it.
I am so glad to hear that you suffered too.
I know everybody's like mad at me. I'm like, I'm suffering right along with you guys, okay? It's not my fault.
I find that a lot of the times, if something affects me a lot, like if I'm reading and it's like I'm crying and I get to talk to the author, almost always the author is like, oh yeah, I cried when I wrote that.
Yeah, we feel the pain too.
Oh gosh, yes. Even when I was doing house copy edits, it's like copy edits are the most grueling, mindless. You're not even looking at like the book as a whole. It's literally like sentence by sentence. Does this
Like,
comma go here? Do you really need to put this word here? Does it go here and that? And oh, what's a preposition? And you've got to look up all these different things that you haven't thought about since like high school English. And like I still got to chapter 26 in house and I was like sobbing. I was like, why did I do this to myself? Oh, that comma goes there, but why?
Yep. I totally feel that.
Let's see. Alice Prosperpine wants to know, have you heard of Hadestown?
I have heard of Hadestown. I haven't seen it. Have you seen it?
I haven't.
No, neither of you? I have heard so many good things about that, but I have not seen it yet.
I listened to it a lot. So the music is very good. And I saw like the one scene that they performed at the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. Yes. They did at Hadestown. That's as much of it as I've seen. But the music is really good. And that's one that I would super want to see for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. I've heard of Agent Query, but I was wondering, how did you find your agent and what would you suggest for finding an agent?
So I think a lot of people are like try to find like a way in or whatever. But honestly, like querying, like slush pile, like, you know, you can get an agent querying just like old fashioned, like I did Pitch Wars. Which I don't know if I don't know if you've heard of Erin, but probably.
Oh, yeah.
If you've been in publishing for any amount of time, you've heard of Pitch Wars. So Pitch Wars is like this like online mentorship contest where there's like seasoned like publishing people, authors, or people who've like worked for agencies who are going to be mentors, and they select one manuscript to like kind of like help you like learn how to revise or whatever. And it's like pretty hard to get in because it's like usually there's like 4,000 submissions and only like 100 people get in. And so it's like really hard to get in. And I luckily was selected in 2018 when I did it. And so my mentors is basically just like critique partners, honestly, is what it became. But like they, you know, they're just slightly more experienced than me. And they were just like, they read the book and then they just gave me some thoughts about, you know, things that I could improve if I wanted to. And then it was like up to me, like based on their notes, like I had to figure out how to fix the issues that they pointed out and stuff. And so I revised based on their like notes. And then we did like the agent showcase, which is at the end of Pitch Wars, where they post up like a page of your book and like a pitch, and agents can say, oh, I want to read that or whatever, like send it to me. But honestly, like at the end of Pitch Wars, I still had to query like all of those agents who said, I want to see that. Like I still had to send them a query and like a sample page or a sample chapter or whatever they asked for. And so, yeah, I think people want there to be like an easy way out, and I wish there was. But like honestly, I think it just comes down to like querying at the end of the day and like doing everything you can to like get your book as polished as you can, and doing your research on finding agents, and like being honest with yourself about like what your career aspirations are and like what kind of agent you want to get you there. So like if you want to publish with a big 5 publisher in New York, like you need to find an agent who can do that for you, and not just query any random person on the internet, you know. So there are a lot of resources out there. So like Agent Query is one. There's like Query Tracker. There's Manuscript Wish List. There's like Janet Reed's Query Shark blog that teaches you all about how to write a query letter. And so there's a lot of resources out there to help you kind of like navigate the slush file. But
cool. And last, there seems to be some internet issues going on. My working there for a second, and now we've lost Erin. But I think that was the last question anyway. Okay. So thank you, Jessica. I'm going to tell everyone to buy books because look at this cover. If for no other reason, the cover is amazing.
It's so pretty.
So how did this cover come about, Jessica?
So back like when they first bought the book, they were just asking like for some thoughts of things that could go on the cover and what kinds of covers I liked. And I gave examples of covers that I liked and then told them, you know, like there's, they could put like a mask on the cover, or there's like in the book, there's this elixir, which is what is on the cover. It's this elixir that comes from memories that's part of the magic system. And so like we could put like a vial of elixir on the cover. We could put an organ on the cover because she plays the organ. Like there's this necklace that she wears. Like, so I just like gave them like some images, and like they kind of, I don't know, like the art team is really brilliant over there. And they just kind of, you know, came up with their thoughts and stuff. And they sent me a concept and asked for my thoughts, and I gave them feedback, and they sent me another concept, and it turned out to be this concept was the second one, and I just loved this concept. I was like, yes, let's do this, because I felt like it incorporated the like darkness that the book has, you know, from like the villain phantom vibe, but then it also has the elegance of like the opera house and the stuff, like the music, you know. And so I think it turned out really, really great, and I think it's really striking, and I love it. So I'm so glad it turned out the way it did.
Yes, I think it's really good. You can order books too from us, chubbyandcoos.com, and place order. There's a picture of Erin's book there, and you just click on it. It's very easy. I'm sorry, not Erin's book, Jessica's book. Erin just came back on screen because her internet. I have Erin on my mind. Jessica's book, you could just, there's a picture of it, and you just click on it, and you can place order. We do have signed book plates and really cool bookmarks. Thank you for sending those, Jessica.
You're welcome.
So if you order from us, you can get a book plate and a bookmark, and that's something you can't get from Amazon. So
that's true.
So please go ahead and put in an order for this super cool book. And thank y'all so much for having this conversation. It was so much fun to listen to y'all talk as a theater nerd and a book nerd and a Star Trek nerd. I mean, all the things. It was just like, it was so nerdy and good. It just made me so happy. Y'all.
Authors always make the best nerds. Like book people, like I love book nerds.
Yeah, we just like all the fandoms and all of the. I feel like we fangirl hard when we fangirl.
So for real, I know. So thank y'all for this awesome conversation, and thanks everyone for watching and for your questions. And this will live on YouTube, so if you're watching later, you can still buy a book, even if it's years from now. Hopefully it's still in print. You can buy it.
Please say it's still in print.
So thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Erin. And thank you, everyone, for watching. And we'll see y'all next time. Oh, and just to make a plug for tomorrow night's event, we have another event tomorrow night, and I will be talking with author Stina Light, who wrote a book called Persephone Station. And it is a like feminist space opera. And it is very like The Mandalorian, but like feminist space opera.
She's like, let me jump in.
If you ever watched Cowboy Bebop, it's very like that sort of vibe. And it is a lot of really badass people in space, and it's great. So we'll be talking to an author tomorrow. So join us for that. Same time, same place. So see y'all later. Thank you so much.